Hey everybody, welcome back to Video So Today we're continuing series. Is that an analog in your pocket? Are you just happy to see me? And I'm here today to talk about the new Amiga core updates. Because with OS 2.1 and new Amiga cores, we're getting a ton more out of the Amiga on the Analogue Pocket. And honestly, it's wild in and of itself that the Analogue Pocket can actually do Amiga. It's basically recreating an entire computer in a handheld device. And big thanks to Limmy, he basically tells me everything going on in the FPGA space for Amiga. He is a huge fan, and honestly, my Amiga knowledge base is very thin, and big thanks to Andy D for helping with some of the captures, because he actually knows what Amiga games that you should be playing. It's just not a system that I've gotten a ton into, but I always want to play around with it, and now having got an Analogue Pocket with a new update is absolutely spectacular. There are a ton of hidden gem games and some awesome best games of all time on the Amiga, and now with new updates you're definitely going to be able to enjoy them. But there is a little bit of a setup process. You do need to be on the new operating system, and you do need to have a different file as far as the HDF is concerned, but you need to have OS 2.1 currently. If they're making of this video, it is the newest firmware. If you have anything less than 2.1, this is not going to really work for you, so make sure you download this. I'm going to do a little mini tutorial right here, but if you want to just see the Amiga specific content, skip right to about 3 minutes. So in some of these updates, it also changed the available file size limit. It used to be that we'd use a specific Analogue Pocket build for Amiga games and basically the Mega AGS. Now that has changed. So you can definitely use Pocket Updater to grab the newest firmware as well, as long as you have Pocket Updater downloaded and on the root of your SD card. Just run it and go ahead and you hit number 1 at the minimum. That will update the firmware on your Analogue Pocket. If you haven't yet downloaded Pocket Updater and set that up, I will leave a link in the description below to how to get that going, because if you're new to the Analogue Pocket, maybe you don't have that yet. But like I said, I can't stress enough, you need to be on firmware 2.1 for any of this to currently work, and I will go over a little bit more of that in just a moment. It'll also upgrade your dock. Now you'll see here from Amiga Vision, it's time to upgrade the Analogue Pocket Amiga core, because now the file size restrictions have been limited, and you're going to be targeting Mega AGS.hdf, not the Pocket specific Amiga installation that was used before. So when you get the new Amiga file set, you're going to look for Mega AGS.hdf. That is what you're going to put on to your SD card in that common folder. Otherwise you're not going to be able to find it, and it is not going to boot. And again, that note about needing the 2.1 firmware or greater, that removes the file size restrictions. As we get into the Castlevania AGA demo here, there is a ton of fun to have on the Amiga. There is a massive library for this thing, and every time I pick it up and play it, I do discover a new game I've never seen before from that Mega AGS batch. I just go ahead and click on something I have no knowledge of, and I see what happens. And sometimes I find an amazing new game, sometimes I play it for 30 seconds, give up, and move on. But something like the Castlevania AGA demo, which is relatively new, just shows the power of the Amiga in modern hands. There's a ton of awesome games from back in the day on the Amiga, but a lot of fans of this computer system are making new things, and you're going to be able to run those on the Analogue Pocket today. And when you go into Mega AGS, you're going to get this massive menu. You can do it alphabetized by genre or otherwise. You can pick pretty much any game you want, and I will show you in just a little bit how that you're going to reset the system and pick a new game, because it is different from things such as Neo Geo or otherwise that just use ROMs. But again, as we just move through the world of Castlevania here, this looks spectacular on the Pocket. And if we move on to another game like Turrican, again a classic Amiga game, it is just working as you would expect. Now the Analogue Pocket is no lightweight in the FPGA department, but it's definitely a lot thinner in logic than something like the Mr. FPGA. But having Amiga here in a lot of different iterations with the up to 68020 Motorola CPU is just wild, and the idea that while this is docked capturing, you could take your Pocket with you and play in the palm of your hand, that just seems like magic to me. But there's so many different games to play here, and if you haven't played around with Amiga yet, now is the time to check it out. But leave me a comment down below and tell me if you've been playing Amiga or not, and what your favorite game is. Give me some recommendations down below, because again, this is just not my wheelhouse. And of course, once you start a game, you're going to get an options menu, sometimes with some cheats, but the sound on this core sounds great as well. Listen, and I'll be back with more tips.
Activated.
Awesome soundtrack, and that has been my realization with playing around with this core and listening to the captures that Andy D sent as well. The sound just seems to be spot on. Now again, I am not an Amiga collector. I do have knowledge of the hardware, I have played some games, but I am not in any way, shape, or form any sort of authority on the performance of Amiga. What I'm saying here is what I've seen on other systems, but if you see anything that doesn't look right, leave me a comment down below, because again, I'm not the biggest expert. But getting all of this out of a pocket-shaped device like Analogue Pocket is just absolutely wild. And you'll see here as we move on to another game, changing games is going to be different on the Amiga core than pretty much any other core that you're going to play under OpenFPGA. Normally you just click load ROM and you select a new game in the menu system. That is going to be completely different here, so I will walk you through the process of how to do that after you load up the Mega AGS file. But again, just so fun to see these things even running on Pocket. You're going to go into core settings, and as opposed to loading anything up, you're going to go down and hit CPU reset. This is going to reset the entire Amiga system within the FPGA logic. You're going to go to a black screen, and because you've already loaded up that HDF file, the Mega AGS, it will bring you back to the main menu. So anytime you want to change a game or do anything else after you're running the Amiga core, just make sure you go to reset CPU, and that'll bring you in here. Some games are going to have cheat options. You can select those as well. If you have keyboard and mouse, you can use that. If you have controls, then you're just going to use the Pocket. But as we get back into the game here, it is so versatile what Mega AGS does. The people that work on this thing absolutely make a love letter to Amiga every single time they update it. And this is one of the best curated packages of things you're ever going to find on an FPGA device or otherwise. And these are things that you can run on real Amigas as well. So a big thanks to everyone who does Mega AGS that packages this all up and gets it out there for fans. It is an absolute labor of love. But this has some incredible experiences as well. Things like Monkey Island here. This actually works relatively well on a D-pad. You can totally pull this off without a keyboard and mouse, but the dock will allow you to have a full keyboard and mouse. You can pick pretty much whatever peripheral you want. If it works on Windows, it should work totally fine on the Analogue Pocket. So you can connect a keyboard and mouse and treat the Pocket like a full-fledged Amiga computer in front of you. And that just seems like a magical thing to be able to recreate a classic computer on an FPGA device that you can then take out of the dock and decide to take on the train and pick up right where you left off in something like Monkey Island here. These are absolute classic games, and they are just running so well on the core. This is such impressive work. Now this is a port from the Mr. FPGA project, so it's no surprise it's doing as well as it does here. But having the versatility of having Amiga on the go in a handheld device just makes it feel that much more special. And if you've never played Monkey Island before, take it from me, definitely give this game a shot. It's one of the most classic adventure games of all time. It is up there with stuff like Grim Fandango, even if the art style is different, or the King Quest games or other LucasArts stuff to me. So this should be a reminder. If you haven't played Monkey Island yet, any of the games, definitely use the Amiga core and Analogue Pocket and check one out. I think you're probably going to find one of your favorite new games of all time if you like adventure games. If you don't, honestly, it's probably not going to change your mind too much. But you may see a game that you know, love, and remember in the Mega AGS list, and you decide to boot it up, and you might end up with something like US Gold's port of Street Fighter 2. I'm not sure if these glitches are in the core or in the game, because this is probably one of the worst ports of Street Fighter imaginable. Sometimes you'll see a game that you know, and you just find out that the Amiga version or the PC version or the DOS version is nowhere near as good as any other way to play it. So just remember that when you're browsing through the games. But fans are even on top of that. This is a demo of Street Fighter 2 running in a new engine, and you can see the night and day difference. But I want to give you one more sound sample of another game because I love the sound chip in the Amiga. It has such a particular vibe. Go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back. Just such interesting atmospheric audio, and do keep a keyboard around. Some games are just going to be so much better suited to keyboard usage versus the gamepad. If you're wondering why that one was dusty, I had to dig it out of the closet because I didn't want to hook up the computer keyboard I use on a daily basis to edit. I actually don't keep that many spare keyboards around, but there's pretty much something for everybody on the Mega AGS pack when you have the Analogue Pocket core under OS 2.1. There's racing games, there's fighting games, there's shmups, there's platformers. It is basically almost an unlimited amount amount of games that you can play on your Analogue Pocket today, and that is all just down to the team that deals with Amiga AGS, the people that make the cores, and everything like that. And that is why I've loved taking a look at these sort of things so much. This is highly impressive stuff, and you should definitely check it out if you haven't. This Lamborghini game here just screams classic PC racing game. It is a vibe and a genre that I grew up with, and I definitely love it here. But there's so many other types of games that you can check out on Amiga. There's platformers that are just going to be great for control pad, and that's going to be the thing. Just play around with a particular game, see if you like it on the D-pad with the face button, see if you like it on keyboard, and kind of go from there. But just be aware, based upon how a keyboard works versus how a control pad works and how some games are ported, something like Mortal Kombat here is just going to lack the amount of buttons you need like you were playing the arcade original, no matter what input settings you use. Some things on Amiga are absolutely incredible. Some things like Mortal Kombat, you would just be best to play any other version of it. So just go in knowing that you want to play the games designed for Amiga, and a lot of the times the ports aren't exactly the best thing in the world. Something like Rainbow Island here is an awesome version of the game and plays so well on Amiga, but there's more than one way to play this game on something like Analogue Pocket. Maybe this would be the best way, maybe it's the second best way, but it's always fun to take a look at what's going on here. But the new Amiga core is here, the new Mega AGS version for the Pocket is here. Everything is ready for you to enjoy some Amiga on your Analogue Pocket today. The idea that we can dock this thing, turn it into a full computer, and then take the Pocket out of the dock and use it as a portable computer on the train, lying on your couch or wherever, is nothing short of just amusing to me. It's a full Amiga in the palm of your hand. You don't get to say that very often. If you have any questions or run into trouble, leave me a comment down below. Otherwise, go start playing Amiga today. It is quite fun. Bye-bye.